So welcome. As promised, I'm back, 10 o'clock for yoga. So today we're going to go over some really basic items. So if you're brand new to yoga, this is perfect for you. If you've been practicing for a long time, then hopefully you will learn some new things and at least find this very relaxing. Before we get started, I do want to be clear that I am not in your home with you, so I don't know your injuries, your level of yoga, I don't know your environment, so please be very careful. Listen to your body. If there is a pose that is uncomfortable but you can breathe through it, you can go ahead and keep on doing that pose. But as soon as you feel pain and you are unable to breathe through it, please stop. Either go back to a lower level or just stop altogether. Yoga is about growth and finding joy in the growth, not about pain and suffering. So if you've been doing yoga for a long time, you probably have props, a yoga block, a yoga strap. If you are new to yoga or you are used to using the different props that are available at your yoga studio, we have a couple of substitutes that we're going to use today. So first and foremost, you can absolutely use a chair at any time. So if there's any movement that I'm doing that you would feel is better for you standing up, maybe you have a hard time getting up and off the ground, go ahead and do the poses standing up and with a chair. If you want to follow all the way through, then instead of using yoga blocks, I know you all have some of this, so grab some toilet paper, use that as your yoga block. If you don't have a strap, you can use a tie or you can use a belt. I'm going to be using this very pretty headscarf. That will be my strap for today. And then instead of a bolster, feel free to use something like a pillow or this is cat food. So you can get yourself some cat food or some dog food, whatever works for you. If you don't have a cat or a dog, maybe consider getting that emotional support animal for the next few weeks. Oh, speaking of, he wants to do yoga with us. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and get started. So grab your bolster, pillow, cat food, and join me on the mat. So we're going to start seated, and this is really nice if you have tight hips because the elevation makes it so that you can still sit up nice and tall. A lot of us that have tight hips or tight lower back, when we sit on the floor, we kind of round and it's very uncomfortable. So this is a great way to elevate yourself and have a nice long spine. If you would prefer something a little bit more advanced, you can always find a supported hero's pose. So take your blocks, place them underneath your hips, feet are outside of the hips, and rest on your block. So find whatever's comfortable for you, and then start to just breathe in through the nose, out through the nose. Nothing particularly fancy right now, no special yoga breath, just breathing. Maybe start to notice that the breath is a little bit longer. And I want you to start to feel the breath. Most of us breathe just in our chest, but I want you to start breathing from the belly So expanding the area of the belly and then letting it collapse. You can put your hands on either place so that you can really connect and feel your breathing. And start to grow that breath. So the belly expands first, then you get a little bit into the diaphragm, collapse the diaphragm, collapse the belly, squeeze the air out, pushing the belly button towards the spine. And then inhale, releasing and expanding, growing a little bit bigger so the chest is expanding as well. And then collapse the chest, squeeze the air out with the diaphragm and the belly button. So we're going to go ahead and start with our Yogi Ujjayi breath, which is called, it's the word for victorious breath. It's going to help you build some heat. So what you want to pretend is that you're Darth Vader. And inhale through the nose. Exhale through the nose, constricting the back of the throat, making that Darth Vader breathing sound. And continue to really breathe with your whole body. So you're using your core to breathe in, and then really squeezing to wring all the breath out. We're going to continue with this breath throughout the whole practice today. Using the heat, especially if it's a little chilly where you are, maybe it's earlier in the morning, it's a little bit cold, so your muscles aren't quite ready. Use that heated breath. We're going to take 3 more breaths here, and take this time to check in with your body. How does everything feel? Do you have anything that's painful? I've been dealing with a hip injury, so I'm going to pay special attention to this hip as I go through movements. Maybe you have a tight back or tight hamstrings. Just take a few breaths to check in and notice the areas in your body where maybe you need to be a little bit more careful as you flow through poses. Or maybe there's an actual injury that you just need to skip a pose altogether. So 1 more breath. Good. So go ahead and move your props off to the side. And we're going to go ahead and come onto all fours. Now again, if you struggle with getting up and off of the ground, maybe you'll stay standing. Or if you have problems with your wrists, maybe you'll stay standing, or you can come down to the elbows. Either way, you're going to take a big inhale, drop the belly. Exhale, roll the spine towards the sky, rounding. Inhale, shoulders roll around your ears, and then shoulder blades onto the back, looking up slightly. And exhale, round again. So usually I'm pretty traditional, but I do like to do a jump rope type movement when I go through cat-cow. So maybe that feels good for you. Maybe you want to roll the hips around. Whatever works to feel like the spine is nice and lubricated. And then come back to a neutral position with the back nice and flat. There might be a teeny bit of a sway in your lower back, but try not to sink into it. Try to keep the abs engaged and the back nice and flat. So we're going to first challenge our balance a little bit by reaching one hand out, and then maybe reaching the opposite leg out. And take a few breaths here. If you're more advanced, maybe you want to start to add some of that core movement, bringing the elbow to the knee and extending back out. But when you extend, try not to overextend. We want to come back to that flat, neutral place so that the core is still engaged. One more time. Inhaling back to flat. And then go ahead and release the hand and the knee down. At any time, you can pad up the knees with an extra blanket or a towel. So go ahead and find neutral again with the lower belly engaged and reach the opposite hand out. And then opposite foot. And again, maybe you're not so great with your balance, and so this is challenging enough, keeping the shoulder and the hips square. Or maybe you want to add a little bit more heat. Exhaling together. Inhaling out. Exhale, round and squeeze the abs. Inhale to flat. One more time. And then go ahead and release. Take another couple of cat-cows if they feel good. Arching and rounding. And then come back to flat. And tuck the toes. We're not going to drop our knees or pick up our knees yet. I want you to just stretch back into the toes. See how that feels. Maybe you lift your knees up off the ground. And then maybe you extend back for a bent-legged downward dog. So again, if you're not comfortable getting up and off the ground, you can do this on a chair. So you would simply stand, hands on the chair, and stretch. So you're in the exact same position. The back is nice and flat. You have the extension through the shoulders, but there's no actual pressure on the shoulders. So if you have shoulder problems, that's really good too. So I really want to focus here in our first downward dog on length in the spine. So roll your tailbone up. Extend through the shoulders, pull the shoulders away from the neck so you're not scrunching around the ears. And then once you have that extension, if you can lengthen the legs, go ahead. If not, keep the knees bent a little bit. Or maybe you want to warm up into the extension, one leg at a time. Pedal the feet out. Continue to breathe, using that Ujjayi breath that we practiced at the very beginning. Releasing any tension with every exhale. Then go ahead and come back to neutral and hold for one more breath. And then take one foot at a time and step towards the hands, relaxing down into a forward fold. Now, if you have lower back tightness, this is a really great pose to stretch out the lower back. But one thing that I find a lot of people forget is they lose their midsection altogether. They think it's just a kickback pose, which it can be. It can be a resting pose. But try keeping the abs in tight, which will support the back as you stretch more. Release the hands to the ground and roll yourself up one vertebrae at a time, keeping the belly button pressed towards the spine for support. And then take a big inhale up. Try to not let the ribs pop open. Instead, keep the ribs connected so that the abs are still strong and engaged, supporting the back. And reach through the fingertips. So right now we're not doing any back bends, just a straight reach in mountain pose. Take an inhale here and then exhale, palms together, bring them to your heart and pretend like your abs are pulling your palms down to your heart. Take an inhale up and then exhale, fold forward. You can swan dive forward or you can follow prayer down, whatever works for you. Inhale to a half lift or flat back. Hands can come to your shins, especially if you're not warmed up yet. And then exhale back down. Inhale, rise back up. Exhale, use the abs to squeeze and pull that imaginary line of your hands to your heart. Inhale. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, flattening the back. Exhale, rounding. Inhale, coming up. You can always round up if you prefer instead of doing a swan dive. Exhale, back to your heart. Inhale. Exhale, forward. Inhale, flatten the back. Exhale, release. So this time we're going to go ahead and step back to plank. So modifications here, you can always come to your knees, or what we're going to do right now is come to our elbows. So before we get into the chaturangas and all the push-ups, we're just going to stay right here in plank. Take an inhale, reach through the heels, reach through the crown of the head, and then very gently release the hips to the ground, uncurl the toes, and roll the shoulders back, coming into Sphinx pose. So a lot of people think Sphinx is easy, and maybe it is for some, but if you're doing it right, you're still really engaged. So you want to pretend like you're trying to pull your hips forward as if the mat were to slide, and pull the elbows back so that the abs are engaged, so that even though you're in a back bend, there's no pressure on your back. Take another inhale here, and then exhale, we're going to tuck the toes and push into dolphin pose. Okay, so if you have wrist problems, this is what I want you to do for the rest of the class. You don't need to put any pressure on your hands. Take another breath here, and then go ahead and walk the toes back, and release the knees. The knees can come together, or they can come wide, and push yourself back into a child's pose. So for purposes of any class that you ever take, please go ahead and use child's pose as your resting pose. So if you're out of breath, or you're feeling like the flow is just a little too intense for you, come to child's pose, catch your breath. Child's pose is also a really great pose if you are super exhausted or not getting a whole lot of sleep. It's a very restorative pose to give you a little bit more energy. So take one more breath here. Filling up all parts of the body, including the back of the lungs and the back ribs. And then we're going to go ahead and come back to a forward fold. So maybe you want to come from plank and step forward. Maybe you want to come from down dog and step forward. It's a little bit difficult to step forward from dolphin, but hey, if you have that flexibility, more power to you. Inhale to a flat back. Exhale back down. Inhale, come on up. Exhale, hands to your heart, belly button to the spine. Inhale. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, fold. And again, step back to plank. But this time, if you can, stay on your hands. Fingers spread nice and wide, pushing the back of the knuckles into the ground. Again, come to your knees if you need to. And then we're going to come down, basically a tricep push-up. So elbows stay right next to your sides. Hover above the ground just a moment. And then go ahead and release all the way to the ground. So again, you can take Sphinx if you want. Or come into Cobra, so the hands are right underneath the elbows next to your ribs. Inhale, peel yourself up off the ground. The key here is we're not using our hands. We're using the strength in the back. So you can use the hands just just for like an extra inch, but try to focus on using the strength of the back so that you can build the strength to have good posture. Exhale, come back down, push back up, and into downward dog. Again, knees can be bent, you can pedal the feet out, or you can stay static, whatever works for you. Take one more breath. And on the exhale, step forward, back to your forward fold. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, release. And inhale, come back up to mountain. Exhaling, hands to your heart. Inhale. Now if you want and you're comfortable, your back is okay, you can start to add just the tiniest bit of an extension. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, round. Inhale to plank. And exhale, same thing, tricep push-up or chaturanga. Inhaling to either cobra or all the way up to up dog. So the difference here is cobra, elbows are bent, knees and hips are on the ground, up dog, all the way up. Shoulders are not collapsed around the ears, they're pushing down, abs are still engaged to support your back. And then when you're ready, exhale, roll over the toes, coming into down dog. Take a few breaths here. One more inhale. And on your exhale, step forward, or if you're feeling warmed up enough, you can start jumping back and forth. Inhale, flatten the back. Exhale, round. Inhale, come back up, reaching maybe a little back bend, and then exhale to your heart. So we are going to start to go into a few more poses. If you are advanced enough that you want to keep that vinyasa in between every pose, I will signal that, but we are going to skip it from now on. But I trust that if you've taken enough classes, you'll be comfortable adding it on your own. So with the hands and heart, we're going to take the hands back up, inhale, and I want you to go ahead and exhale, step back, letting that heel come to the ground, so the back foot is at a bit of an angle, and sink into the front leg. Now be careful, we don't want this knee to go beyond the toe, so if your stance is too short, lengthen your stance and make sure your knee is right on top of your ankle. Also, we want the hips to be as close as possible to square with the front of your mat. So you can always take your hands, put them on your hips, and follow your hands to so that they're square. If you find that you're just too tight in this hip to be able to do that, walk the back foot out a little bit farther, which will give you some more room to square the hips. Inhale, exhale, release any tension in this hip, ease into it. Yes, it's a strengthening pose, but there's also a lot of lengthening in it as well. One more inhale. And on your exhale, just straighten that front leg. Again, if you're more advanced, this is your time for your vinyasa. If you're not more advanced, go ahead and just roll over to the other side, walking your feet into the same position. So back foot, a little bit of an angle, front foot is straight. You want to make sure that this ankle or this heel is not connecting with the back foot at all. So it's either heel to heel alignment or wider. Again, hands up, sink into that front leg. Maybe bring the gaze to the sky. And I want you to think about all four corners of that back foot connecting with the ground. So you're not dumping into the ankle and you're not rolling into the outside of the foot. Keep it even on all sides. One more breath. And on your exhale, again, extend. We're going to roll forward. Take a breath here. You can take a vinyasa if you'd like. And then we're all going to meet back at the front of the mat, hands in prayer. Take a breath here. Inhale, shoulders up, and then exhale, back down your back. Good posture. Inhale. And this time on your exhale, you're going to step back, but you're going to allow the hips to open and the hands to come wide, and then sink into that front leg. So back foot is still a little bit of an angle, but now this heel should intersect with the arch of the back foot. Take a look at the front knee. Knee should be right on top of the ankle. Again, don't let it roll in. Push it back out. And then I want you to flip the hands up. Notice where your elbow crease is. Keep your elbow crease there and simply flip the palms back down. Hi, buddy. You can also bring your hands to heart in this pose, or give your little emotional support fur baby a hug. He likes to do yoga with me. One more inhale. Exhale, straighten the leg, and we're going to switch feet. So again, find the alignment with your feet first. Extend the hands, rolling the shoulders back and the elbow creases up. And then exhale into warrior two. So one thing that I see a lot in classes is everyone just lets their gut go and they stick their booty out. Try not to do that. Squeeze the abs in, roll the hips under, neutral spine. And you'll notice the more that you do that, the more you start to lengthen this back hip and hip flexor, which for me feels really good, especially if you sit all day, especially because I know you all have been on Netflix for like the last week, sitting on your couch, letting your hip flexors get tight. One more inhale. Exhale, straighten that leg. And again, gently step to the front. Take an inhale up. And exhale, fold forward. We're going to take just a few breaths here to release, relax. Do a body check again and see how all the things that you were feeling at the very beginning of class, see how they feel now. If you started with tight hamstrings, do you feel a little bit more comfortable? Can you more easily put your hands on the ground? If you had a tight back, do you feel any loosening up there? Just take a few moments to mentally check in and see how everything is feeling. So from here, we're going to go ahead and release the hands back down to the ground. And I want you to drop your hips back, keeping your knees glued together. And then first bring your hands just so that they're parallel with the ground. So we're going to go into chair pose, but what I want to teach you is to use your abs in chair pose rather than just trying to overextend and reach the hands all the way towards the sky. We don't want that. So stay here for a moment. Try to tuck your tailbone under a little bit so that the belly button is squeezing towards the spine. And then, if you can, raise the hands. They don't have to go all the way to the sky. They don't have to be raised at all. Just find whatever works for you. You should definitely be feeling this in your legs. Nice strengthening pose without overextending and hurting our backs. One more inhale and exhale, release. Again, take a few breaths here, relax in forward fold. Maybe give yourself a little swing, side to side. So go ahead and come back in the middle of your mat like I am, shift over, find the middle of your mat, and then come into chair pose again. So we're going to go into warrior three, which is a balance pose, which can be very challenging for some people. So the modifier is just to stand up straight, pick up one foot, and try to keep the body flat. Just tilt a little bit. You don't have to tilt a lot. You can even keep that back toe on the ground, or you can also hold on to your chair for support. Now, maybe you go a little bit further and find a nice flat body, or maybe you want to come from that chair pose, pick up a foot, and kick back into warrior three. So find whatever works for you, and try to hold that for a moment or two. If you fall out of it, no problem. Go back to the beginning, either standing or from chair pose, and start again. Balance poses, you are going to fall. It's inevitable. You just want to make sure that you are in a position to where the fall doesn't hurt. So again, maybe using your chairs. So on your next exhale, you can either come back up to standing or come back to chair pose. Either way, we're going to fold forward, relax the head and neck, maybe wrap those arms again, and just breathe. Release the hands, and again, either find chair or come all the way up to standing, and we're going to find our balance on the other side. So this time I want you to pay attention to the toes of the back foot. Flex the toes and roll the toes so they're pointed towards the ground. And what that will do is it will help you square your hips, which is going to make it more challenging for balance, but it will help you achieve the proper alignment in the pose. So hold it 1, 2 more breaths if you can, and then come back to your starting point, either chair or mountain, and exhale, fold forward. When you're in forward fold, make sure that your knees are not hyperextending. You want to keep a soft bend in your knee if you have trouble with hyperextension, or you can squeeze the quads, try to pull the kneecaps up to prevent the hyperextension, and get that straight leg. Release the hands back down to the ground if they aren't already, and roll yourself up one vertebrae at a time. Big inhale up. Exhale, hands to your heart. Okay, so that is basic movements for flow. Tomorrow we'll get into a lot more fun flow, but those are some of your basic movements. So we're going to shift gears, and we're going to do what I call an active meditation. So for most yoga classes and for most people, they usually do meditation in a seated position or maybe even a position where they're laying down. And for me, I have found when I do meditation in a yoga pose, not a hard yoga pose, but something that keeps me focused, it really helps me clear out all of the other thoughts in my mind. So one of my favorite ways to do meditation is to do it standing in tree pose. So if you struggle with your balance, you can always put your big toe on the ground or grab your chairs. If you want to bring it up to the next level, bring that foot to your calf, not your knee, your calf. And if you have good balance and you'd like to challenge yourself a little bit more, keeping in mind that we're going to be here for quite a while, bring the foot up to the inner thigh. Again, not your knee, the inner thigh. You can bring your hands to your heart, or you can bring the hands to the sky. This is going to be a little bit more challenging, and the higher you bring your gaze, the more challenging it will be for your balance. But remember, the goal here is not the pose. The goal here is stillness. So even though I can stand like this, I often choose to do my active meditation in a little bit easier version of tree pose. So again, bring your hands to your heart or to the sky and start to just focus on stillness. So maybe you notice your ankle is wobbling a little bit. Try to stabilize it. Start to work your way up the body. Maybe the knee is rocking side to side. We definitely don't want that. So if you're feeling that unstable, maybe bring the toe to the ground and breathe. Come back to that Ujjayi breath, that victorious breath. Maybe calming the system if you worked up a little bit of a sweat like I did going through some of those poses. Notice the full breath, expanding in all directions. Expanding the belly as though it was to wrap around the spine, and then collapsing the belly button towards the spine. Expanding the lungs in all directions, feeling the ribs, the space between the ribs, expand both in the front of the ribs and the back of the ribs. Maybe at this point your standing leg is feeling quite tired, a little burning sensation. Focus on that sensation. Don't worry about what you have to do today or how well you did this class or when the next class is or if you're getting sick. Don't worry about any of that. Focus on the sensation in your standing leg. And just breathe. One more inhale, filling all the way up to the top of the lungs, and then exhale, release. Release that foot. Take a moment, shake out the standing leg if you need it, or if you're like, that felt so good, I can't wait to jump in on the other side. Find your balance on the other side. Whatever variation of the pose works for you. And again, find stillness. All the little wobbles and movements, take them out and just be as quiet as possible. If you find that you're really distracted and it's just so hard for you to find stillness and quietness, you can always try some simple techniques. You can try visualization. So pick something that you know very, very well. Maybe it's your wedding ring, maybe it's your favorite car, maybe it's your favorite emotional support animal, and picture that thing in every teeny tiny little detail. What's the color? What's the feel? Does it have a smell? Does it have a flavor? What's the texture like? Is it big? Is it small? What's the exact dimension? Focus on every little detail of that item. And again, let all the other thoughts and worries, especially about our current situation, let those just go to the wayside and focus on the detail of that item. One more breath. And release. Shake out that foot. Shake out that leg. Just a real quick introduction to meditation. I personally like it as a shifting point from your vinyasa to some of your more relaxed movements on the ground. So to get to the ground, let's take another inhale up. Exhale, fold forward. And then go ahead and bend the knees and come back to sit on your heels. So for those of you that were maybe uncomfortable getting up and off of the floor and so you stayed standing that whole first part, feel free to come down to the ground because we're going to be on the ground for the last 10-15 minutes. So make your way to the ground. If you have the balance, maybe you come here and take your hands off the ground, maybe to heart, or maybe above the head. Just an extra little toe stretch before we finally make our way to the ground. Yes, we're going to stretch and then snuggle. It'll be great. Okay, so one foot goes straight, other foot comes to the inside of your leg. Take a big inhale up, and exhale, reach with the belly button towards the kneecap. And then once you've reached as far as you can with the belly button, go ahead and just relax the hands to the ground. He knows I'm sweaty, so he's going to get fur all over me. Oh, how it feels to be loved. Now, if you have the flexibility, you want a little bit more, you can grab your ankle, you can grab your foot, you can grab your strap. And just give yourself a pull, pulling your elbows towards the ground, but trying to keep the spine long. So the belly button reaches towards the knee. Try not to reach up with the head or crash with the head. Keep a nice long line of energy out through the crown. Continuing with that Ujjayi breath. Noticing that on every heated exhale, you just really relax a little bit deeper into the stretch. One more breath. And as you exhale, release and round yourself up, squeezing the belly button towards the spine. Take an inhale up with the hands. Exhale, opposite hand to your knee, opposite hand behind, just a gentle twist. Inhaling to lengthen the spine. Exhaling to look behind you a little bit more. 2 more breaths like that. Inhale, exhale, inhale long, exhale twist. And then go ahead and come back to center. Switch feet, so the opposite foot extends, opposite foot to the inside of the thigh. Inhale up. So remember I said I've been dealing with some hip injuries? This is my bad hip and this is where it hurts. So I'm not going to go as far. Okay, that's about where it's comfortable for me. I'm still reaching with the belly button towards the kneecap so that I'm not just rounding. And now I'm going to release my hands. I'm not going to use the strap because I don't need any more intensity on this side. Inhale, and on my exhale, I'm just going to notice if it feels a little bit more comfortable. And for me, it's not really the stretch, it's that transition. So I do feel a little bit more comfortable, and I can go a little bit deeper. So now that we've moved past the hinging of the joint, I can give myself a little bit more. One more breath here. And then exhale, round up, and I'm going to really support myself on the way up because that transition in the joint is what makes it not happy. Big inhale. Exhale, opposite knee, and hand behind. One more inhale, growing tall. Exhale, twisting. And then release back to the center of your mat. And we're going to rotate back towards the front. I'm going to take him with me because he likes to do boat pose with me. So you'll notice in yoga you need a whole lot of strength in your core. You need that for balance, and you need that for safety. If you don't believe me that you need it for balance, try standing up and standing on one leg with your butt hanging out, all pooched out. It's so much harder to stand up than when you try to zip it in. So we're going to go ahead and lean back into boat pose. Beginners, you can keep your heels on the ground and just extend your arms. More advanced, you can come up so that your shins are parallel with the ground. Maybe you're more advanced and you'd like to straighten. Wait, poof. We're going to get really advanced here. Okay, maybe you have a small animal or a small child and you would like to get really advanced. We like to do a lot of Lion King stuff in my yoga. It's great. Okay, you can go now. So hold it here. And what I want you to think about is keeping your back from collapsing. So to do that, go ahead and do a big inhale, shoulders towards your ears. Roll them back, keeping the back flat. Cat hair everywhere. And now feel the strength in your core. So one more breath here. And then release the hands. Bring yourself back up to seated. Scoot forward a little bit so you have plenty of room. And then gently roll yourself back, one vertebrae at a time. And walk your feet in a little bit closer to your hips. So ideally, you'd like to be able to brush the backs of your heels with your hands. If you don't have quite that much range of motion in your knees, it's okay to have them a little bit farther out. You'll just find you won't have as much of a slope when you go up into bridge for that inversion. So before you come up, make sure that you're looking straight to the sky and do not take any glances around. So if you want to watch one time first and then do it on your own, that's fine. But make sure you're not doing bridge looking at the camera like this or looking at the phone like this. It'll put pressure on your neck where you don't want it to be. So once your neck is nice and neutral, we're going to do bridge two different ways. The first way, we're going to squeeze the belly button towards the spine, pushing the spine into the ground, maybe lifting the hips up slightly. And then keep that core engagement as you roll the hips all the way up off the ground, hip points pointed towards the sky. Again, remember when we were in Warrior One, when we did the direction with our fingertips, you can do that in bridge as well. So maybe this is pretty easy for you. You've been practicing for a long time, so you want to go ahead and just roll up onto the shoulders, interlock the fingers underneath you, get a little bit more openness in the heart. And then when you're ready, roll the shoulders back to flat, squeeze the abs and roll down one vertebrae at a time. So the second way we can do it, which is not my favorite way, I prefer the first way, is to keep a neutral spine and lift straight up. So you can do that as well. The end result is the same. You're just not engaging the core as much, and you're also not getting that spinal massage as you roll back down. Now, if this is too much for you, or you're tired and you just want to chill, take your blocks, bring them under your hips, and come to a supported bridge pose. Either way, this is still an inversion. An inversion is any time you get your hips above your heart, and inversions are incredible and so powerful for your heart. Your heart muscle is activated, of course, by cardio, but when you do most cardio, like you're running, you're spinning, you're upright, and so your blood is being pumped through the same lower level part of your heart. And the nice thing about inversions is now you get that activation in the top parts of your heart that you hardly ever get activation because of gravity. So it's really, really good for you. It's a really great way to get some cardio in without actually feeling like you're doing cardio. So one more breath here. Release your blocks and roll back down. Bring your knees towards your chest and wrap around. Doesn't have to be a tight wrap, just a relaxed wrap. Give yourself maybe a couple of rocks side to side. Maybe a couple of very small rocks back and forth. And then come back to flat. Take your hands on your kneecaps and make some small circles with your kneecaps, which basically makes a circular massaging motion on your tailbone and your lower lumbar, which I've had lumbar problems and it feels absolutely heavenly. So a couple more in the other direction if you haven't switched already, and then come back to center. And however you want to get up, maybe you want to do some rocks, or maybe you want to put the feet to the ground and practice using your core and rolling up nice and slow. Either way, we're going to do one more breathing exercise. So if you would like, you can bring that bolster again to elevate your hips, to get that good posture. You can sit in hero's pose on your blocks, or if you feel comfortable, you can come into lotus or half lotus. So half lotus, one leg comes above the other with the the ankle in the hip, and you rest the knee on the other ankle. If you feel comfortable, you can come into full lotus. If you're new to yoga, please skip this. You're probably not quite ready for it unless you have some type of hyperflexibility in your knees. Either way, find a comfortable seated position. We're going to practice a alternate nasal, alternate nostril breathing, which is really good for meditation. It's really good for stress and anxiety, which I'm sure we are all feeling right now. So I want to close with this and then Shavasana so that you have some tools to hopefully help calm some of the stress that's going on with our current situation. So take your hand, make a little hang 10 sign, and then pop out your ring finger. You're going to take your thumb and you're going to place it underneath your right nostril, not smashing the nostril. If you smash the nostril, you're not going to be able to breathe through it. So just underneath to close the air gap. And you're going to inhale through your left nostril. You're going to hold that inhale in, and you're going to switch, take your ring finger, close your left nostril, exhale out the right nostril. Hold the body empty of air for a moment, and then inhale. Hold it, and switch. Exhale out the opposite side. Hold, and inhale. Exhale, opposite side. Inhale. Exhale, opposite side. We're going to do that twice more. I'm going to switch my legs you can either switch yours, or maybe you're finding your seated position of choice was not so comfortable, so you're going to make an adjustment. Good. So try to do at least 5 rounds of that before you go into meditation. That will help calm your system quite a bit. 5 rounds is inhale, exhale, so you do a whole round. Go ahead and release your lotus, half lotus, move your props over to the side, and go ahead and roll back down for our final pose, corpse pose, or Shavasana, which is hands down the best part of class. So please don't skip it. Relax. Let your feet roll open naturally. Let your upper body roll open naturally. Maybe the fingers curl a little bit. If you need to, in order to make the spine neutral, go ahead and roll the shoulder blades under. Release that Ujjayi breath. We're not doing anything special here, just regular deep inhales and exhales. And let your body just melt into the ground. So throughout yoga, you're systematically squeezing and pushing and pulling blood through the body using compression and release. And so it's really nice at the end of any practice to lie in Shavasana and let your blood flow normally without any kind of impediment, without any kind of movement that's squeezing it, without any kind of stress that's making it race, without gravity making it pull in your feet. Just let the blood flow naturally through the body and flush your system out. And it happens to feel bomb. Nothing wrong with that. Take 3 more breaths here. Go ahead and start to reawaken the body. Wiggle the fingers, wiggle the toes, maybe give yourself a couple of wrist and ankle rolls. Reach over the head. Maybe the knees come up. And then roll yourself over onto one side, or if you prefer to rock up, that's fine too. Gently push yourself back up to a seated position. So we're going to close out today. Thank you so much for coming. Namaste. Namaste means the divinity in me bows to the divinity in you. But for the sake of this series, I'm going to say the health in me bows to the health in you. I hope you guys stay healthy. I hope you enjoy this. Honestly, I've never done anything like this before, so it's a little bit nerve-wracking for me, but I hope it was beneficial for you. I am going to check all of the comments because obviously I couldn't see comments as they come in live, but I'm going to check all the comments and answer questions if there are any questions. And then tomorrow I had said 6 o'clock, but I forgot that I have a very important meeting at 6 o'clock. So we're going to do 5 o'clock Pacific time PM tomorrow for a all levels vinyasa flow class. Don't complain that I changed the time because you all are working from home, and so you can put away your work computer at 5 o'clock and come directly and do yoga with me. Bring yourself a sweater, bring yourself a towel because we're going to sweat a little bit more. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you so much for joining me.